Welcome all. In this video I will explain functions, and as our programs get larger we often have the same functionality in our program. So imagine that we have some statements here, then we want to sort numbers, then we have more statements, and then we want to sort numbers again. So what you see here is that we are sorting numbers twice, and therefore we also have to implement the sorting algorithm twice, which is not very efficient. So what we can do with a function is a set of statements, for example a set of statements which sorts numbers, and what we can do is then call this function at these points here. So instead of implementing the sorting algorithm twice at this point and at this point, we can simply call it function which does sorting the numbers. So that's a more efficient approach. So let's have a look how a function looks graphically. So you can see a function as a black box, and a function has firstly a name, for example f. Furthermore, the function has inputs and a single output. So when we call a function, we can give the function inputs. The function processes these inputs and results in a single output. So let's see how we can implement a function in C++. So how we do it is that we are typing a function outside the main. So until now we always typed statements here, but now it's the first time that we are working outside these comments here. Yeah, so we are writing a function here above at this point. And how we start a function is with a data type. So we have seen multiple data types before. So for example, an integer, a string, a double, a char. And this data type represents the type of data of the output. So for example, if the output is a number, we have to use the data type integer. Is the output a piece of text, then we have to use the data type string here. Yeah. So again, this data type here represents the output, the type of data of the output of the function. Then it follows with the name of the function, function name, then rounded brackets, and between these rounded brackets we define the inputs of the function. Yeah, so the inputs of the function are being defined between the rounded brackets here. Then the curly brackets here, and here we implement the function. So let's give a concrete example. So imagine that we have a function which calculates the area of a rectangle. So first we have to think about a name for this function. So for example, calculate area rectangle. And for this function we require two inputs, namely the width of the rectangle and the height of the rectangle. And furthermore, the output is the area, so the area of the rectangle. So again, we have a single function. The name of the function is calculate area rectangle. It has two inputs, the width and the height of the rectangle, and the function has as an output the area. So first we have to think about the data type, what the function returns, so meaning the data type of the area. So again, this data type here represents the type of data of the output, which is the area in this case. So since the area is a number, which can be a decimal number, we chose here the data type double. Then we have to think about a function name. So we typed here the function name calculate area rectangle. So that's what we can type here. And note that we cannot use any white spaces. So if you have multiple words, each word is being separated by an underscore. Here between the rounded brackets we define the inputs. In this case we have two inputs, the width and the height. So we can type the width and the height here. However, for each input we also have to define the data type. And since the width and height are numbers, which also can be decimal numbers, we chose here for double. And note furthermore that each input has to be separated with a comma. Yeah, so we have the inputs width and height here, which are separated by a comma. And furthermore, before the name of the inputs, we define its data type. And in this case, the width and height are both a decimal number, and therefore we use the data type double. Next, we have to implement the function. So what we want the function to do is calculate the area. And to calculate the area, we can make a double named area. So in this variable, we store the area of the rectangle is equal to width times height. Yeah, to calculate the area of a rectangle, we have to multiply the width with its height. So now we have the area of the rectangle in this variable here, but we have to specify which number we want to return from this function. Yeah, so we have here the function and it returns the area. So we have to specify that in the function, which number it has to return. And in this case, it's the number in this variable here. And to do so, we have to type return and then area. So with this statement here, we return the area of the rectangle. So that's how we implement the function. So let's run this program. And now you see it does not very much because we still start here at this point at start program. The program ends at this location, and in between we have no statements here, so nothing happens. So when we want to call a function, we have to use the following syntax. So you start by by typing the name of the function, which is in this case calculate area rectangle. Yeah, so to call this function, so to use this function, you have to type its name, then rounded brackets, and between these rounded brackets you have to specify the inputs. So in this case we have two inputs for this function, so the width and the height. So therefore you have to specify two inputs between these rounded brackets here, which are divided by a comma. So for example 10 and 5. So in this case the width is here 10 and the height is 5 in this case. Yeah, so let's run this program again. And you still see nothing happens. So what happens here now is that we call this function, meaning we jump from this location to the function. Furthermore, the value 10 is being copied into width and the value 5 is being copied into height. Yeah, so from this location we jump to the top, and width is stored with 10 and height is stored with 5. And then it executes all the statements in the function, which are these two statements here. So first it calculates the area here. So it multiplies width by height and the result is being copied into this variable here, area. And then it returns the value in this variable here, which represents the area of the rectangle. So this, when we call this function, this is a whole will gives us the area. However, we do not do anything with it yet. So to do anything with it yet, for example, print it on the console, we have to use cout here. Yeah, so now it prints the value which this function returns. So let's run the program. So now you see it prints 50. So what happens here is at this location, I jump to the top, because we are calling this function here. 10 is being copied into width, 5 is being copied into height. Then on line 10, we are calculating the area of the rectangle. And on line 11, we return the area of the rectangle. So therefore this function here will give us back the area of the rectangle based on the numbers 10 and 5. So based on the width and height of 10 and 5. And the result is being printed by using cout. So now we used hard-coded numbers here, but these can also be variable. So what we can do here is make two variables for the width and the height. Then we can say to the user, type the width of the rectangle. And then we can use cin to get width from the console. Yeah, so by using this statement here, the user can enter width, and this entered width is being stored into this variable w. So the same we can do for the height. Like this. And now instead of using the numbers 10 and 5, we can say for the width, so the first input is the width, so we can say here we use the value in w in this variable here, and for 5 we can say we use the value in h, which represents the height of the rectangle. Yeah, so let's run this program. So we have to enter the width of the rectangle, so for example 6. Furthermore, we can enter the height of the rectangle, for example 10, and then you see it prints 60. So one more note to add here. So we have seen a function, and what we also see here is the int main, and also the main here is a function. And this is a special function, namely the program always starts in the main function. So when you start your application, the first statements that it will execute are the statements in the main function. And from there on, we can call other functions, as we do here. Furthermore, we see that this main function returns an integer, and it has empty rounded brackets, meaning it has no inputs. So that's also possible. We can also create functions without any inputs. And furthermore, at the end of the function here, at the end of the main function, we see it returns 0, and that's for the operating system that runs this program, and 0 means that the program did close correctly. So that's it for this video. In this video we have seen functions.